Hi everybody, this is Lara at Pure Elliott Wave. I'm going to analyse just some technical analysis, not Elliott Wave, 3 Australian stocks that a member of mine has asked to have a look at. Chimeric, Imugene and Prescient Therapeutics. Let's start with Chimeric. So just technical analysis only. This is a weekly time frame and this is the entire price history. It's been in a bear market since its launch and currently it's moving downwards quite strongly. On the weekly chart, well obviously there's no bullish reversal pattern. I've drawn a channel from this low to this low with a copy on this high. This contains the entire bear market. I think because this one's been in a bear market for its entire price history, I would want to see this channel breached with a full daily candlestick above and not touching this trend line before I had confidence that it has finally found a low. Volume, let's have a look and see what volume is doing. As price falls, volume is overall declining as well. There was a strong bullish candlestick pattern here which had pushed from volume, but it's been followed by more downward movement. It was immediately followed by a bearish gravestone doji. So this is a bullish engulfing pattern, and here's a gravestone doji. Now price is moving lower with push from volume. This current week here is incomplete, so we can't draw a conclusion about this volume data. I'm sorry about the wind noise. I could cut it out, but it's so hot here in Barbados today, so I'm just going to have that window open. I am getting a sock for my snowball. It's not here yet though. On balance, volume has got a fairly tight range on the weekly. I'd want to see a breakout of this range as well before I had real confidence that we've got a low in place. We could have drawn a range around this and taken a bullish signal of a breakout above that, but that range would have had quite a steep slope. Here, the resistance line has a relatively shallow slope. It's got at least 3 tests. You could count 1, 2, 3, 4 more tests, but these are a little bit below. So if we see a break above this resistance line, I'd have a little bit of confidence that a low may have formed. ADX has reached very extreme for the downward trend, and then as price bounced up, it started to decline. Price moves lower, an extreme trend again, an extreme trend again. ADX is still declining, it's back below the negative DX line, so if the ADX line turns up, it would again indicate a trend that at this point would not even be extreme, so room to go. There is some bullish divergence now after prices, RSI has reached deeply oversold. From the closing point here at 9 cents to the closing point here, just over 6 cents. Price is closing lower, RSI is moving higher. There's no pivot low developed here, so I'm not going to count this divergence from this candlestick here. We need to see a pivot develop before we start to look at corresponding points with RSI to determine if there is divergence. I've learned that one the hard way over the years. You could have called for bullish divergence here from the closing price here, 8.8 cents, to the closing price back here, 9 cents. Price closed lower, yet RSI was substantially higher, and yet downward movement continued. So we could see this divergence develop more. It could develop multiple times, and ADX could reach very extreme before we see an end finally. There's the same divergence between price and money flow, and ATR is declining as price falls, and now at the moment starting to increase as price falls, so that's quite bearish. Let's have a quick look on the daily. Price is falling really strongly and volume is pushing it lower. Previous support broken just below 6 cents. Below that there's just free fall, so the only support below is round number pivots, so it's falling through 5 cents, so the next one would be 4 cents. Volume is pushing price lower. This is very bearish. On balance volume, I don't see a range that I can draw trend lines around on the daily, so I'd just look at the weekly. ADX is indicating a downward trend in a relatively early stage. This is a very bearish signal from ADX. There is longer term bearish bullish divergence between price and RSI. The close here, 5.6 cents. and the close here 5.3 cents, but we haven't developed a pivot low. Wait for a pivot low to develop before we look at divergence. So we could be seeing more divergence develop, but it's not here yet. Money flow is neutral and exhibits longer term bullish divergence. ATR starting to show an increase as price falls. This one's very bearish. My conclusion for Chimeric Therapeutics Limited is I would want to see this trend line breached by a full daily candlestick above and not touching it before I had any confidence that this bear market's over, and or this resistance line on balance volume on the weekly chart having a clear breach by on balance volume, and that would also be an indication potentially of a major low having formed. While neither of those things have happened, I would expect this is probably going to continue lower. Next on my list, Imugene Limited. On the weekly, here is the entire price history. It found really strong resistance, about 58 cents, and that's initiated a bear market, and it's continuing lower. So let's look at this bear market. On the weekly, here is the high, and here's the bear market, and I've drawn a channel from this high to this high with a copy on this low. It contains all of this bear market. Again, I would want to see a full daily candlestick above and not touching this trend line to have confidence that this bear market is over. Here's a really good morning doji star bullish reversal pattern, and the third candlestick here had good push from volume. It came in the context of ADX indicating a downward trend which was only just extreme. RSI oversold but didn't exhibit divergence. And yet despite that strong bullish candlestick pattern with push from volume, that wasn't the end of the bear market and prices continued to lower lows. Here's a bullish piercing pattern, hasn't been followed through by much. This is the current week, which is incomplete, so we can't draw a conclusion. The previous completed week has a bearish upper wick. As price is falling, overall volume is declining, and for the longer term as well, volume is declining. As price is falling, on balance volume is falling with price. I don't see a short-term consolidation here that I can draw support and resistance around for on balance volume. ADX is giving a strong bearish signal. It's indicating a downward trend, not a brand new downward trend, but a downward trend in a reasonably early stage. There is bullish divergence between this trough and this trough on RSI and corresponding points for price. The close here was 14 cents. And the close here was 12 cents. Price is closing lower, RSI is higher. This divergence is bullish between those pivot lows, but it's still being followed by more downward movement that could develop further. We can see multiple divergence develop before a trend ends. The same divergence between price and money flow, and ATR is declining as price falls. There is increasing weakness in this bear market. On the daily, when you look at these candlesticks, you can see how thin this volume is. So I'm not going to do Elliott wave analysis on a market like this. It wouldn't have enough volume for reasonable looking Elliott wave structures and any reliability whatsoever. Here's the upper edge of that channel. I want to see this channel breached for this one as well before I would have any confidence whatsoever that we have a low in place. And I'd only be looking at candlestick patterns on the weekly chart due to light volume for this one. A downward trend is indicated at both daily and weekly time frames for Imugene. There is longer term bullish divergence. This is what we see on the weekly. We also see it on the daily. There's no short term bullish divergence developing yet on the daily. And ATR continues to decline as price falls. Looking at this one on the monthly chart, we see the previous all-time high here, 666.888 cents, so just under 67 cents. And here, the high in October 2021, 62.5 cents. So price didn't make a new high. It found resistance very strongly about 66 cents and is moving lower. So for the very short term, I want to see this channel breached. And if we do see that channel breached and we see a new upward trend develop for Imugene, I would look for very strong resistance and be very wary about that 66 cent mark and watch how price behaves there. I'll be looking for candlestick patterns on the weekly chart for this one. The last candlestick pattern on the monthly chart is very bearish. This is would be a gravestone doji if it's in the context of an upward trend, but the bearish upper wick and the downward trend is certainly very bearish. I wouldn't have confidence in this one either. And lastly, Prescient Therapeutics Limited. This is the entire price history on a monthly time frame. This one looks possible. It could be forming somewhat of a rounded bottom or maybe even an inverted head and shoulders. This would be the head, the left-hand shoulder, the right-hand shoulder might be forming. It's too early to say if an inverted head and shoulders could be forming. You have to draw the neckline from the troughs or the peaks between the left-hand shoulder and the head and the right-hand shoulder. You can't just draw a random line. You've got to draw the line properly. So this one's been mostly in a bear market, but it's possible there could have been a low down here. This is a bullish engulfing candlestick pattern on the monthly time frame, and it had a little bit of push from volume. Price moving up and away, found resistance here about just above 30 cents, now moving downward in a shorter term bear market. I've drawn a channel around this one. We'll look at that on the weekly chart. This is the bear market on the weekly chart. I've drawn the channel from this high to this high and placed a copy. Let's put it just on these lows down here. Found support again here, a strong bounce up and away, could be coming back down for another test of support. Depending upon your risk appetite for this one, I would be waiting for a full daily candlestick above and not touching this trend line before I had confidence that this bearish movement was over and the next bullish movement was underway. There's a really strong bullish engulfing candlestick pattern, and these three here make a morning doji star as well. The third strongest candlestick here does have push from volume, but then we get a strong shooting star up here. Now price is moving down and away. Here's another very, very strong bullish engulfing candlestick pattern on the weekly. It has good push from volume. We could have a low in place here, but this might not have any follow through. It has strong push from volume, and our price is moving lower on declining volume, but that's happened before, and yet price continues to make new lows. So just because volume is declining doesn't mean price can't keep falling. It can fall, as we say, of its own weight. That's due to a lack of activity from buyers just as easily as it can increased activity from sellers. On balance, volume is moving lower with price, doesn't have a short-term range. I can draw trend lines around though. ADX looks to be flat and it's below 15. It's too low to indicate a trend. The previous upward trend reached very, very extreme. This bear market has only been indicated by ADX in the middle of it, and then a bounce in the bull market was indicated by ADX, and again here downward movement indicated by ADX. Currently the positive DX line's above the negative, but the ADX line is too low to indicate a trend. So I was hoping to see that ADX indicated the downward trend was extreme. It's not doing that on the weekly. RSI reached oversold here. We could be starting to see, if we do see new lows, I'd be looking for a pivot low to form and then look to see if there's bullish divergence between price and RSI. No divergence yet, but RSI has reached oversold on the weekly. No bullish divergence between price and money flow either. ATR overall declining throughout this bear market. The increase in ATR was for the bounce within the bear market, the counter trend movement. So there's a bullish bias to this market. That's actually really good to see. On the daily chart, just looking at these candlesticks, you can see how thin this market is. This market is very, very light volume. Here's a dragonfly doji. Wasn't followed by much upward movement at all, but here we get some upward movement after a lower low after the dragonfly on a low and a closing basis. Here's a strong bullish engulfing candlestick pattern. We have a strong bearish engulfing pattern here and a gravestone doji at this high. Bearish upper wicks on these doji here, a bearish upper wick on the shooting star here, and now price is moving lower with some push from volume. Overall volume declining as price falls, but for the short term volume is pushing price lower. There is a small range on balance volume for recent movement. Yellow line is resistance, purple line is support, on balance volume is at support. This might assist to halt a fall in price, but this is technically rather weak. This line for support has a reasonable slope and it's only got 2 prior tests, so that's pretty weak. A bearish signal would be a break below support, but again, that would be a weak signal. ADX is declining. There is no clear trend at this time frame. If it moves up again and reaches 15, that would give a strong bullish signal. There is very strong bullish divergence between price and RSI. Price has reached oversold here. The close was 10 cents. A new pivot low here for price at 9.3 cents, and RSI substantially higher, strong bullish divergence. A little bit of bullish divergence between price and money flow as well, and ATR declining overall as price falls. There's a really nice V bottom back here in March 2020 for Prescient Therapeutics Limited. That in conjunction with, it looks like on the bigger picture, on the monthly chart, it looks like it might be forming a rounded bottom. This is the only one I would have a little bit of confidence in, but again, I'd want to see this trend channel breached to have real confidence in it. We're also starting to see up off the low, we're starting to see some volume start to increase there. So this could be a huge first pullback within a new bull market, or we could be about to make new lows, but I would say it's a little bit more likely that this low may well be sustained. So depending upon your risk appetite will tell you how you want to approach this. You might want to have confidence that the next bull run is going to begin soon, or you might want to wait until this trend channel is breached on the daily chart before you have confidence that we have a low back down here. That's it with 3 Australian stocks for my member. Thank you so much for watching.